Holy Toledo, Palantir is getting exciting, and that's because it tested its most critical resistance point of the year today, and that's at $20. And if this is able to hold stabilization above 20, we could see a breakout in the near future for PLTR. And considering with the recent CPI data report, inflation has been flat and has hit a 2-year low. We're going to be talking about this because $20 is not just a psychological resistance point for PLTR, it's also its year-to-date high resistance point. The last time that this was tested was not last quarter, but the quarter before, Q2. It hit 2024, and when those earnings were released, we saw a correction. Palantir is trading differently this time. As we've seen the rally after Q3, we've seen stabilization in the 18s last week, into the 19s even, and now possibly testing the $20 level of resistance. Could a breakout be here in the near future? We're going to be talking about PLTR and also some critical revisions that we've seen for next quarter earnings already. We're talking about next February. Now, if you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, thank you so much for watching. This is Data Dispatch. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just collecting the data and dispatching to you. Quickly, let's pop up the charts here and talk about what we are seeing with Palantir, and that is the 52-week year-to-date resistance point of $20 being tested right here, and we have a little bit of a rejection. We could see a lot of pressure and a large challenge to overcome this resistance point, because the question is, once Palantir breaks out above this, where is the end for Palantir? Where will we see the profit taking? Because we're not seeing it right now. We're seeing earnings per share revisions already for the next quarter, and we're seeing a lot of analysts that are changing their price targets, even though Palantir is highly valued. People are still paying a high premium for Palantir, and this is continuing to evolve as the momentum in Wall Street is continuing to bring buying pressure and confidence given the inflation data that we've seen. Now, if we talk about Palantir, volume right here, 82 million. We're still seeing volumes above 50 million, which is kind of the average that we've seen with Palantir. Lots of buying pressure coming into here. And if we zoom out, here's that $20 level of resistance that we just talked about. Everybody saw that today, but what we do need to look at quickly, and what we've talked about before, is last time we tested this was the year-to-date high, and that's back here last August, before that previous quarter, Q2 results were reported. We see that at 2024, they were in line last time and saw that correction back here in between the 13s and the 16s, which is where Palantir typically likes to trade. We're seeing a different type of trading pattern happening right now. Like I said, as Palantir was able to hold support in the 18s, even after creating this immense gap, this was never closed. This was never tested again. And now we're seeing a rally and pressure at that $20 level of resistance. Let's talk about what we have in terms of options. We have a lot of implied volatility and lots of call volume at that $20 strike price for expirations at the end of this week, and also expirations at the end of next week. We still see calls at the $20 strike price that are outbeating the puts. So more people are having confidence that Palantir will overcome this resistance here in the next few trading sessions. And what we have for one of the biggest media articles in terms of macroeconomic impacts on the stock market in terms of Wall Street was that their expectations were beat by the inflation, as it was flat in October from the prior month, and that the core CPI hits a 2-year low. And one of the main factors is we're seeing energy prices fall, which is leading to the CPI 2-year low. And this is great, as this was flat from the previous month, but is increased about 3.2% from a year ago. Both of these are below Wall Street estimates, and we're sparking a major rally that we're seeing. We see the S&P, we see the Dow Jones all doing well in terms of the global markets, up about 1 to 2% and in the green for mostly all the stocks that we have seen today. We're seeing this rally, it's continuing. Talking about Santa Claus is coming earlier than we thought. Palantir Technologies, why it might be posed for a surge. A great article here by Yahoo Finance talking about the Zacks rank, which a lot of people use as a reputable source of, I want to say, predictors and analysts in terms of great stocks, is that Palantir has recently became a #1 strong stock. And with the current quarter estimate revisions, we've seen revisions already in terms of the bullish perspective. And in terms of next quarter, that's going to be next February, still a long way from there. Let's get to the end of the year first. But what we are seeing are revisions, which means analysts are already predicting that Palantir is going to do better and better and expecting to pose about 8 cents per share, which is a change of 100% from a year ago in terms of the reported number. And over the last 30 days, we've seen two estimates that have moved higher for Palantir Technologies compared to no negative revisions. And as a result, we have seen the Zacks consensus estimate that has even increased 33%. And with the current year estimate revisions, they're expected to bring in 25 cents per share for the full year, which represents a change of 316%. And talking about this, Palantir Technologies carries a Zacks rank of #1, indicating a strong buy, which is pretty hard for a Zacks rank to report this among all the stocks that they do analyze in terms of significantly outperforming the S&P 500. And with that, investors are betting on Palantir Technologies because of its solid estimate revisions. And we've also seen what we talked about in yesterday's video was one of the most critical points for Palantir and one of the best metrics that is bringing lots of customers to the table, and that's their AIP software. With their AIP bootcamp, we've talked about this in many videos. We're not going to beat it like a dead horse. It's bringing lots of customers to the table. We've seen this in terms of diversification across their clientele, not only in governmental contracts, but also in terms of commercial revenue with that commercial customer growth. Now, with this being said, we see the NASDAQ, they come out with an article giving a quantitative stock analysis. We're not going to get too into the nitty gritty here, but talking about the 222 guru strategies basically rated Palantir, and they give it a strategy rating of 94% based on the firm's underlying fundamental and stocks valuation, showing that 80% score is basically some interest in the stock, and a 90% gives a very strong interest in the stock. What we're seeing is lots of interest is coming in here as it passed the test with fundamental momentum. And that kind of leads back into the momentum that we're seeing in general in terms of the stock market, that we're seeing everything closing in the green, and this rally coming in here in the November rally that is continuing to outdefy the bears. And if we go back to Palantir, pushing past this $20 of resistance could lead to a breakout into some of these higher price targets that we have seen at the 25. Now, this will be interesting to see if any analysts do change their targets, because right now Palantir is rated based on 17 different analysis still as a hold. And I think the reason behind that is because there is still a lot of speculation behind PLTR. And the reason being is because we've seen this immense amount of explosion. Yes, they have beat their quarter earnings, but also we need to be a little bit realistic that there is a lot of speculation here, and Palantir is trading at these 52-week highs. And any type of negative news could bring, even in terms of macroeconomic impacts, could bring a correction. So this is why it's important to really understand the risk behind more of a speculative AI stock. However, Palantir, in terms of people wanting to take that risk, is a leading competitor in the AI industry right now and is continuing to evolve and mature as a company, especially with its criteria being met in terms of that fourth quarter of GAAP profitability, which brings inclusion to the S&P 500 index. And as we know, of all the different funds that track the S&P 500 index, can bring a lot of buying pressure into Palantir. So is it too late for Palantir? I don't think so. Where are we sitting at right now? Market cap personally at 43 billion. Think of some of the top blue chip stocks, look at their market cap and compare that right now. Because I think Palantir within the next decade can continue to grow with the AI industry, with all the analysts that have predicted how much of a market capitalization and how much of a market share is going to trickle into the AI sector. And as we continue to see that, this bubble is continuing to not be burst. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It could happen. We could see correction among many of these stocks where people can dollar cost average, or people sitting on the sideline putting these on their watch list could enter their positions for the long term. Where Palantir sits right now, I think, is at a great spot in terms of their revisions that we're seeing coming into 2024. We see, and what's really going to be important is how the Fed is going to respond in terms of the CPI data and in terms of their interest rate hikes. We see inflation lying flat, which right now many Wall Street analysts and many investors will probably predict that inflation and with interest rates will probably be held steady, considering that we see flat. Because what we did see is the Fed said that they were not scared of bringing interest rate hikes to the table. However, what we're seeing, especially with the 2-year low in terms of CPI reports, is that we could see a standard and a hold for interest rates, which could continue this rally. It's important not to get too far ahead of yourself, of course. We'll be keeping an eye on the sideline. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. We'll see what happens at Palantir by the end of the week. Take care.